So recently, I had somebody reach out to me on LinkedIn. He said, hey, I love your content, but I would love to hear more about commercial real estate deals. I thought it'd be a great time to talk about some of the pros, some of the cons of commercial real estate investing. Okay, before we jump into the pros and the cons about commercial real estate investing, we need to know exactly what is commercial real estate. Well, commercial real estate is defined by an investment property or income property is real estate buildings or land intended to generate a profit either from capital gains or rental income. Hey, and by the way, speaking of capital gains, I actually did a video about 1031 exchanges, how you can use this legit tax loophole, how to defer your taxes and use that money to buy bigger and better properties. Got the link below, check out that video. Okay, so essentially commercial real estate is basically non-residential. There's many different categories of commercial real estate. You have everything from office buildings to malls to medical centers, multifamily real estate, warehouses, and many more. Okay, let's jump into pro number one, NNN leases or triple net leases. Basically what a triple net lease is, where you have, as a landlord, as an owner of the building, you have the ability to pass through expenses to the tenant who's renting from you. Generally, this happens where you have a business renting from you. This is very common as well. Triple net leases, you could pass on expenses, everything from taxes, insurance, water bills, maintenance, you name it. I have friends who are actually in the manufacturing niche of commercial real estate. They have triple net leases where their tenant basically pays for every single thing besides the roof and the outside. Anything else, the tenant is actually paying for that. All right, pro number two. So usually rents are higher, which means more income for your investment property. Now, this is gonna depend on your location because we know real estate is about location, location, location. There's industry averages of price per square foot, but these all vary. They also vary by category. For example, you have retail. Looking at some of the national averages on retail, you have about $18. If we're looking at rents, and let's say you have about 2,000 square feet times 18, that's $36,000 per year you could be getting for that space. Again, everything is going to determine on where you're at within the country. I'm speaking of the USA because that's where I'm at and that's what I know. Also, prices are going to go up, they're going to go down based on the market, based on the timing. So you just have to look and find comparable rates within your market. Then you could reverse engineer your returns that you'd be making off of that commercial real estate. Also, bonus tip too, sometimes you could also just do a flat rate. For example, one of our properties, we just say, hey, rent's gonna be $2,000 per month, everything included. We've had people sign up and say yes. That actually comes out to a higher price per square foot than the averages that we're actually seeing around our area. So again, there's ways that you could be creative. You don't always have to stick to the price per square foot, but generally speaking, these tenants will actually pay higher and more money to have space. All right, pro number three. Generally speaking, the terms of the lease are way longer. On average, the buildings that we have, we are seeing between 3 to 5 year terms for the lease, which is awesome, especially in commercial, in office, in retail. That's mainly what we have, because if you have a residential renter, usually they're doing about year to year, sometimes month to month. There's higher turnover, there's higher volume. Whereas if you have a business in your commercial space, usually they want to be longer term because they want to know and have comfort that their business is going to be protected in your place for a certain period of time. So again, usually those leases are longer, so you don't have to worry about higher turnover and touring it and losing money every single month when it's vacant. And by the way, that 3 to 5 is just what I've experienced. I know people who are downtown building skyscrapers in my city. These people have leases for 20 to 25 years, sometimes up to 30 years. Just imagine you sign a tenant, 30 years later, you're still getting paid that rent for a one-time deal that you set up many decades ago. All right, it's not always sunshine and rainbows. It's not always making a bunch of money being very easy. Sometimes it's hard. And with that being said, I want to share with you some of the cons that go with commercial real estate. Con number one, generally it takes longer to find a tenant to lease up your commercial space, especially an office, retail, if it's a business. Now, if you have residential, you have a bigger pool of people who are shopping to find a place to rent for. So just to give you some quick numbers, there's about 33 million businesses in the USA. There's also about 44 million household renters in the USA. So we can already see right now that this pool is much smaller for businesses renting versus residential. Also, especially with this work from home and digital, you can actually see that probably go down a little more. So if we're looking at the pool of the 33 million businesses that we just discussed, about half of that are going to be people who have maybe a bigger company. Those bigger companies may need space. So you can see that the pool just shrank from about 33 million to maybe 17 million, maybe 18 million versus 44 million. It's a little harder and it takes some more time to find a tenant to lease from your commercial spot, which means more vacancy, more time you're not collecting rent, less income. That can be a con. We've experienced it and it's not the most fun. Con number two, I've experienced this twice this year. They could either go bankrupt, they could go out of business, or they could just up and leave. Now, sure, you have a bunch of contracts that you have in place. Everybody's happy, everybody agrees on terms, we all shake hands, we go our merry ways, but we know things come up. People change their mind, AKA the business might just up and leave. Again, this has happened to me twice. Then you have to go about it and you have to think logically in your head, okay, we have a contract, we even made them personally guarantee this, but is it worth the time to go after their $2,000 in rent versus going and finding a new tenant, getting that new tenant in there, especially if you're a smaller operation or a smaller investor and you don't have a legal team. You have to weigh these pros and cons. That is a con. They could just up and leave, and it's even going to cost you more money and more time to pursue that than what it's really worth. So, again, this has happened to me, could happen to you, something you just have to think about. And con number three, again, something that I've experienced, was you can have complaints depending on the setup of your commercial space. Mainly if you have mixed use commercial space or a mixed use commercial building, which again, that was my first deal that I did. I had 2 commercial spaces on the bottom. I had 3 apartments up top. We would have issues sometimes because we had, for example, a restaurant shop that was down in the commercial space. What happened was sometimes smells would come up to the tenant above. They wouldn't be super happy, or maybe there would be noise coming from the tenant above, coming downstairs to the other commercial side that was a massage place, and people are stomping around. So the commercial space wasn't happy, they're complaining. So you can get complaints if you don't have a good setup, or if it's not optimal. Just something to think about. That can be a con. It can be a con and be a big one, and a big nuisance that adds up pretty quick if you don't find a solution, or if you don't troubleshoot or get around that. Well, I hope this video helped. I hope that I showed some of the pros, some of the cons of investing in commercial real estate. Like always, if you have questions, comment below. I am more than happy to help answer any questions you have to the best of my ability. My first deal that I bought was a commercial deal, 5 unit. So I have a decent amount of experience, and I'd love to hear your feedback on what you think about commercial real estate.